Most women never truly understands the profound psychological power they wield when they step away from a man who has grown too comfortable in their presence. There exists a dark, ancient force within the masculine psyche that awakens not when a woman is near, but when she becomes mysteriously absent. This force, rooted in the deepest layers of the unconscious mind, transforms mere attraction into something far more consuming: obsession. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, that hidden aspect of personality that contains all the repressed, denied, and undeveloped parts of the psyche. When a woman withdraws her energy, her attention, her very essence from a man's immediate reach, she inadvertently activates his shadow self. The comfortable, predictable dynamic shatters, and in its place emerges something primal, something that demands pursuit. This is not mere desire. This is the masculine unconscious, recognizing that what it took for granted is slipping away, and the ego cannot tolerate such loss. The psychology behind this phenomenon runs deeper than surface-level attraction. When a woman is consistently available, always responding, always present, she becomes part of a man's psychological comfort zone. Jung called this the persona, the mask we wear to navigate social situations. But comfort breeds complacency, and complacency is the enemy of desire. The moment she steps back, the persona cracks, revealing the raw, unfiltered need beneath. Consider the Stoic principle that Marcus Aurelius wrote about. The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. When a woman changes her pattern of availability, she forces a man to confront his own thoughts about her value in his life. Suddenly, what was taken for granted becomes precious. What was assumed becomes uncertain. This uncertainty creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort that arises when our beliefs and reality don't align. Have you ever noticed how powerfully your own energy shifts when you're no longer trying to hold on to someone? There's wisdom in this withdrawal that extends far beyond mere dating strategy. When you honor your own need for space, for independence, for mystery, you're not playing games. You're reclaiming your authentic power. And if this resonates with you, if you recognize the truth in these words, consider joining our community of empowered women by subscribing to this channel. Every woman who finds her way to this deeper understanding becomes a beacon for others, still searching for their own strength. The first sign that your absence is feeding his growing obsession manifests in the frequency of his attempts to contact you. Where once he might have sent a casual text or made a routine call, now there's an urgency, a desperate quality to his communication. His messages become longer, more probing, seeking to understand what has shifted. This is the masculine psyche grappling with what Jung termed the anima, the feminine aspect of the male unconscious that becomes activated when the external feminine withdraws. This increased communication frequency reveals something profound about the male psyche. When a woman's presence becomes uncertain, when her responses are no longer predictable, the masculine unconscious begins to work overtime. He finds himself crafting messages with care he never showed before, analyzing her responses with the intensity of a scholar studying sacred texts. This hypervigilance is the unconscious mind's attempt to regain control over a situation that has become unpredictable. The second sign emerges in his behavior patterns. He begins to appear in places where you might be, not through coincidence, but through unconscious design. His social media activity increases around content that might catch your attention. This is projection at work. He's projecting his own anxiety about your absence onto external behaviors, hoping to recreate the connection he now realizes he's lost. The shadow self is driving him to seek you out, even when his conscious mind might resist. This behavioral shift represents what Jung called the activation of the anima. The feminine aspect of his psyche, long dormant while you were readily available, suddenly awakens with fierce intensity. He becomes more attuned to beauty, more sensitive to emotional nuance, more desperate to understand the mysterious feminine energy that has slipped from his grasp. Your absence has transformed you from the familiar into the mysterious, and mystery is the greatest aphrodisiac of all. The third sign reveals itself in the stories he tells himself and others about your absence. His ego, threatened by the loss of your consistent presence, begins to construct elaborate narratives. Perhaps you're busy. Perhaps you're playing hard to get. Perhaps you're testing him. What he cannot accept is the possibility that you've simply chosen to direct your energy elsewhere. This denial is the shadow's way of protecting the ego from the painful truth that his own complacency contributed to your withdrawal. The fourth sign manifests in his increased attention to your responses when they do come. Every word you speak, every text you send, every social interaction becomes magnified in significance. He analyzes your tone, your timing, your choice of words with the intensity of a detective examining evidence. This hypervigilance is the unconscious mind's attempt to regain control over a situation that has become unpredictable. Where once he might have glanced at your messages casually, now he dissects them for hidden meanings, searching for clues about your emotional state and intentions. This obsessive analysis reveals the depth of psychological disruption your absence has created. Jung understood that when the anima is activated, a man becomes hypersensitive to feminine energy in all its forms. Your silence speaks louder than words ever could. Your delayed responses carry more weight than paragraphs of explanation. This is because your absence has forced him to confront the reality that you are not an extension of his ego, but a separate being with your own will, your own desires, your own mysterious depths. The fifth sign appears in the quality of his sleep and mental state. When a woman's presence becomes uncertain, when her energy is no longer a constant in his psychological landscape, the masculine unconscious begins to work overtime. He finds himself thinking about her at odd moments, during work meetings, while driving, in the quiet hours before sleep. This is not mere infatuation. This is the psyche attempting to solve the puzzle of her absence. Jung understood that the unconscious mind never rests, and when faced with an unresolved emotional situation, it will continue to process, to seek patterns, to demand resolution. The dreams come next. Not the gentle, romantic dreams of early attraction, but the vivid, often disturbing dreams that reveal the shadow's true nature. In these nocturnal visions, he may find himself chasing, searching, calling out to a figure that remains just beyond his reach. These are the dreams of a man whose anima has been activated, whose feminine unconscious is demanding attention. The absence of the external feminine has awakened the internal feminine, and the psyche is in turmoil. Consider what Seneca wrote: "The mind that is anxious about future misfortunes is miserable." When a woman withdraws her predictable presence, she forces a man to confront his anxiety about future interactions. Will she respond? Will she return? Will she choose someone else? This anxiety, this delicious uncertainty, becomes a form of psychological addiction. The dopamine hit of her occasional response becomes more powerful than the steady comfort of her constant availability ever was. The sixth sign manifests in his relationship with other women. Suddenly, he finds himself comparing every interaction, every conversation, every potential romantic encounter to the woman who has withdrawn. Other women, no matter how attractive or available, seem to lack something essential, the mysterious quality that absence has now imbued in her. This is the shadow's way of protecting what it perceives as valuable. The ego may try to move on, to seek substitutes, but the unconscious mind has marked her as irreplaceable. This comparison trap reveals something profound about masculine psychology. When a woman is easily accessible, she becomes part of the background of his life. But when she steps away, she becomes the standard against which all other women are measured. Your absence has elevated you to mythical status in his psyche. You are no longer just a woman he was dating. You have become the embodiment of the feminine mystery itself, the anima projected onto flesh and blood. The seventh and most profound sign reveals itself in the fundamental shift in his self-perception. The man who once felt secure in his ability to maintain her interest, who perhaps took pride in his emotional unavailability or his casual approach to the relationship, suddenly finds himself questioning everything. This is individuation in reverse. Instead of becoming more whole, he feels fragmented, incomplete without her presence. The shadow self whispers that he has lost something irreplaceable, that his own actions have driven away someone who understood him in ways he never fully appreciated. But here lies the deeper truth that Jung would have recognized. This obsession is not really about her at all. It is about his own unfulfilled anima, his own disconnection from the feminine aspects of his psyche. Her absence has become a mirror, reflecting back to him all the ways he has failed to honor the feminine, not just in her, but within himself. The gentleness he never cultivated, the emotional depth he never explored, the vulnerability he never allowed himself to feel, all of these emerge when faced with the possibility of permanent loss. This psychological transformation is both beautiful and terrifying. Beautiful because it represents the potential for genuine growth, for the integration of the feminine that every man must achieve to become whole. Terrifying because it forces him to confront the parts of himself he has long denied, the emotional depths he has avoided, the tender vulnerability that society taught him to suppress. This is why the Stoics taught that attachment leads to suffering. When we make our peace dependent on another person's presence, we give away our power. When we need someone to complete us, we become fragmented in their absence. The woman who understands this principle, who can step back and observe the psychological dynamics at play, holds tremendous power, not over him, but over herself. The masculine obsession that follows feminine absence is not something to be manipulated or exploited. It is a natural consequence of psychological principles that have governed human behavior for millennia. When a woman chooses to honor her own needs, to step away from situations that no longer serve her highest good, she is not being cruel. She is being authentic. She is choosing to live in alignment with her own values, rather than molding herself to fit someone else's comfort zone. What happens next reveals the true nature of feminine power. As his obsession grows, as his attempts to reconnect become more desperate, the woman who has stepped away faces a crucial choice. She can either be drawn back into the familiar pattern of giving more than she receives, or she can maintain her boundaries and observe the transformation taking place within both herself and him. This moment of choice is where true empowerment lies, not in the ability to make someone obsessed, but in the strength to remain centered regardless of their reaction. The most profound realization comes when we understand that this dynamic is not about power over another person, but about power over ourselves. When we stop chasing, stop explaining, stop trying to convince someone of our worth, we free ourselves from the exhausting cycle of external validation. We become whole unto ourselves, complete in our own right, magnetic not because we are trying to attract, but because we have found our center. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The woman who truly grasps this principle becomes untouchable. She moves through the world with the quiet confidence of someone who knows her value is not determined by another person's recognition of it. She loves deeply when it is reciprocated, but she does not diminish herself for love that is one-sided or taken for granted. His obsession, therefore, becomes a teacher, not for him alone, but for her as well. It shows her the power of her own presence, the value of her own energy, the preciousness of what she has to offer. But more importantly, it teaches her that this power must never be used to control or manipulate. True feminine strength lies in the ability to remain sovereign over one's own heart, to give love freely when it is honored, and to withdraw it gracefully when it is not. The beautiful irony is that this self-possession, this inner completeness, becomes the very thing that makes her irresistible. Not because she is playing hard to get, but because she has become hard to lose. Not through desperation or manipulation, but through the authentic strength that comes from knowing herself completely. She has done the shadow work, faced her own projections, and emerged whole. Consider the words of Epictetus, "No one can hurt you without your permission." When a woman truly understands this principle, she becomes immune to the games that often characterize modern relationships. She does not need to create obsession through absence, because she has learned to value her own presence. She does not need to withdraw her energy to be appreciated, because she has learned to appreciate herself so completely that others naturally follow suit. This is the final lesson that Jung would have recognized. The anima and animus must be integrated within ourselves before we can hope to find wholeness in relationship with another. The woman who has done this work, who has faced her own shadows and emerged integrated, does not need to create obsession in others. She simply needs to be herself, fully and authentically, and let others decide whether they are capable of matching her level of self-awareness and emotional maturity. The man who becomes obsessed with her absence is being given a gift, The opportunity to confront his own shadows, to integrate his own anima, to become whole in his own right. Whether he takes this opportunity or remains trapped in the cycle of taking love for granted is his choice to make. Her choice is simpler and more profound: to honor herself so completely that she never again needs to withdraw her energy as a plea for recognition. In the end, the obsession her absence creates in him is simply the universe's way of showing him what he failed to value when it was freely given. But for the woman who understands these deeper psychological truths, the real victory is not in being obsessed over. It is in being so complete within herself that she attracts only those who are worthy of her presence. She becomes a force of nature, untouchable and free, choosing her connections from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. The woman who knows her value doesn't chase, she chooses. Akaba Aki.